Yeah, perfect. So people coming in. So, all right. Because we have a special day today. We're talking English because we have a special guest, Ole. So actually, do you want to chair this, Hedwig? I'm talking, but or shall I? No?
Yeah,
Okay,
you can
perfect.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, all right, perfect. Yeah, okay. People coming in. So a special guest, yeah, and actually invited by Hedwig. So that's very nice. You know each other already, of course. And maybe you want to give a short introduction, Hedwig? Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Why?
nice.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Why am I
Why?
sitting here?
Why?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm working on a project called Life Cool Square. It's a European project about greening a square, and we visited Copenhagen to get inspired to see some examples on how to do it. And we made an appointment with Ole. Ole worked for the municipality of Groningen on a project called bedrijventerrein. And how do you say, Floris? Where companies
In
are.
exactly, yeah. So mostly industrial area or
Yeah.
commercial. Yeah, exactly.
So, and
Yeah.
we saw his presentation and we thought we have to go there. We have to meet Ole and his project. And he gave us a presentation that really inspired us. When we are working on the project, we still say a lot of times, you know, the Inghaven, the project, we want to do something like that. So I thought it would be very nice if he gave the same presentation to a broader audience. So that's
Nice.
why I thought of Ole. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think you can start with that. And actually, there are a lot of people coming in. Yeah, I just explained we didn't realize that there was the World Championship with Holland playing Qatar. So really glad that everybody can join. And of course, we tape this so people can see it back, of course. So we just go to you, Ole.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You had
I
a great introduction already, but maybe you can explain something about
no, I think
yourself
it's fine.
and
Yeah, definitely.
entertain us.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for taking your time. I guess some of you are probably sitting with two screens watching the game as well. But yeah, thank you for the invitation, and also Hedwig for the follow-up. Very nice. Yeah, if I can also just continue the introduction, I'm like one of the two partners here at Tredje Natur, in English, Third Nature. We are sort of seeking an alternative way in the business of architecture and planning, where we sort of try to come up with ideas that are systemic and scalable, that of course are very much based on how it performs, how it can create desire for change, since we are architects with a huge A. But we're also very pragmatic in our approach, knowing that we have to understand the systems, we have to understand the politics and the economics behind the ideas to make an impact and add to the change and the speed of the change. So what I intend to present you for is a couple of projects that we have been doing. The office has existed for the past 10 years, based here in Copenhagen. I used to work in Rotterdam at the MVRDV, and also after that for Bjarke Ingels, that I guess some of you know, at Big. Of course, trying to think big, but I also got a bit... what do you call it? We saw a need to do things a bit differently. So it's not so much only on the building itself or the plan itself. It's also how it connects to nature, the natural value, but also like that we want to insist as consultants to bring in the values of nature and climate into the project, not as an appendix, but something that actually informs before we are shaping the project. So not form follows function, but form follows givens, so to speak. But maybe I should just take it away, because I also try kind of give you an introduction of our way of thinking, our agenda, and how we generate ideas. So I can run through. a couple of slides, I must admit, but I think we'll manage within the next 25 minutes or so, opening up for some questions if there are any. But let's see if that's okay with you, Floris.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, take it away. You have all the freedom, and we can, if there are any questions, we can put them in the chat first and then address them later, or we can, disturb you during the presentation, whatever you want, Ole.
Yeah, feel free to jump in and ask questions. Sometimes it's easier to take them all along the way, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Take it away.
Good. You just say when you see it.
Yes, we see the
All
Climatecafe.
Exactly.
Great. Yeah.
And I very often use this front cover on my presentations because what we face as architects and planners are very much this situation that I refer to as this Tower of Babel. It's all these good intentions we're having about reaching the goal or the heavenly solutions, but very often we struggle in getting there because we have too many good intentions and too little a language in actually getting there. So there are a lot of nice solutions out there, but what we're actually looking into is we're in need of something that goes a bit more deep than just architecture and aesthetics. And the reason for that is, the human evolution that this first slide sort of introduces. And what is really shocking is this fact that just came up a couple of weeks ago, that Tuesday, the 15th of November, we exceeded the amount of 8 billion people on the planet. And it doesn't really looks like this curve is going to incline less. So we're sort of basing our office and our approach on these conditions and the awareness of that not everything looks like Denmark or the Netherlands, even though the two countries are some of the most cultivated countries on the globe, I think next to Bangladesh or something like that. But what is really mind-blowing is this fact that over the next 40 years, we're going to more than double the amount of square meters. So that are already on the planet today. So to consider those consequences and effects that this situation actually generates is kind of mind-blowing to us. So we sort of started our agenda on this quote by Bruce Mau, who was one of the co-authors together with Rem Koolhaas on this architectural Bible, at least when I studied, called Small, Medium, Large. And he was visiting Copenhagen at a time when we just started our office, and he said this thing that the era of the park is over. We don't need islands of good behavior in a sea of stupidity. And somehow that was putting hitting the needle on the head to us, that what we wanted to contribute with architecture or with planning had to provide a path, a movement, something that was pointing further than just the different tendencies in architecture. So this is another one of my favorite images. It's called Der Wanderer über dem Nebelmeer. It's made by Caspar David Friedrich back in 1818. And to me, this represents the good advisor. This represents the good planner, the good architect who is actually struggling and climbing the mountains and trying to create an overview of all this misty landscape that we are operating within when it comes to urbanization, climate adaptation, etc. And of course, we need to be able to climb down from the mountain again and communicate what we have actually seen and how architects and planners can contribute in actually implementing these needed solutions. So that is maybe a bit abstract, but that is what we actually worked with on different levels, going from huge plans to Climatescapes, the Enghaveparken that Hedwig here just mentioned. We are also doing architecture, like building quite a lot, actually. And then down to the smallest department, our scalable solutions, where this reference is a product we have developed over the past 5 years. I'll also introduce you to that. But let's jump to it right away with the projects. Actually, the first project we ever did as a competition, part of this European planning competition, is called Europan. And we chose this site just north of Copenhagen Center because we could bike to it and actually investigate it. So quite nice, of course. What was not so nice was that this 100-acre site, just after we handed in, was hit by a super rain event, like a monster rain, cloudburst, you also call it. It's estimated that it's equivalent to a 1,000-year rain event, causing damages on Copenhagen alone for more than 1 billion euros within a 2-hour rain incident. And this picture was actually taken from that site, and luckily we developed our proposal with a very nature-based approach. So we were more or less having a quite good gut feeling that we had a decent chance of winning, and luckily we did, and got the commission by the city of Copenhagen to develop the plan further. And when we started working on it, we sort of came to the awareness that even though the streets and the heights of the buildings and the widths of the streets were more or less equivalent to any kind of other neighborhood in Copenhagen, we're sort of puzzled why there was a need to start painting white stripes all over the place to know whether you were supposed to stop or turn left or right. So kind of in a naive way, we started questioning, hey, could there be like an abundance of pavement or closed asphalt here that we didn't need? And actually it did. It turned out when we investigated all the paradigms and regulations of the city, we found that you could accommodate all the needed parking spots, all the bus lanes, the bike lanes, the pedestrian zones, etc. And we had up to 18 to 20% pavement that were out of any kind of functions. So the winning narrative and the driver behind our scheme was actually saying, what could we use these 20% for instead of paving it? And we also asked the guy in charge of the budget for servicing these streets at the municipality how much 20% represented on his yearly budget in terms of cleaning the streets, salting it, renewing it. And it was a substantial amount of money on a 100-acre site. So we said, why don't we activate those areas without any kind of functions? What if we took the situation that you see on the left side, that was a kind of a representative street in the area, saying that very often when you plan for nature-based solutions with green and blue infrastructures, it's a battle between car lovers or tree haters or vice versa. So we could actually come up with a solution where we kind of basically put all the cars in the shade, and we put all the living things, the people, the plants, etc., in the sun. So again, in a super banal way, but as you can see on the diagram on the right side, we actually managed to fit in more cars on the same stretch. We created much more connective green zones and infrastructures, and a much more nice environment. Also, still by using 20% less of the pavement there. So when we scaled it up on a 100-acre site, like this is the diagrammatic plan, as you see, there was like more than 270,000 square meters of asphalt, and we could sort of give back 50,000 square meters back to the people living there, or the houses, the unions that are living there, or having a shared outdoor space. So all the southern or southwestern or western orientated edge zones outside the building plot, we could give that back into green permeable areas that could transform the area from something that was kind of this grayish neighborhood into a much more lush green district than we then called the climate neighborhood. And that is what everyone calls it today. And it has been adopted as a nice, what do you call it, pilot project to initiate more projects like this all over the city. So very often when we as architects are being met with our illustrations and visualizations, they always say that that is not possible. But here we actually knew exactly what was going on also below ground. And I think in most European cities, we have tons of utility companies with like the sewer system, the heating system, all the microfiber cabling to lay out. At least in Copenhagen, we have, I think, 22 different utility companies. And that's where the Tower of Babel comes in again, because they don't communicate. They don't share software. They don't share timing, meaning every time the utility company for the heating digs up the street and fits in new piping, 6 months later, another utility company is coming in, digging up the same pavement, the same tiles, and reestablishing everything. So it's a super expensive and kind of stupid way to do it. So it was kind of strong starting out with like the why here again, and then creating the solution in the architecture itself. Again, turning an island of stupidity or island of good behavior into this kind of a green scenario. And this is how the area looks today. After we did the planning, the municipality developed free of the squares and the streets, and the street alone, or this square alone, we optimized, or was optimized by more than 50% of the asphalt, turning that into green infrastructure. So again, a complete new mindset, a complete new view. You can actually hear birds sing. There are tons of different species. It is climate protected, and this district is going from something that you took a shortcut when you had to go to IKEA. Now you actually use it as a destination. Cafes are opening. The real estate prices are getting higher. Also compared to the remaining parts of Copenhagen, like it's getting higher by 6 to 8% on a yearly basis. So kind of a success. So we were saying to the city, like, listen, guys, if we could make this happen in this representative neighborhood of Copenhagen of a scale of 100 acre, what stops us in implementing that on a city scale in Copenhagen? So imagine if we could project the 20% cost saving on the servicing of our gray infrastructure and putting that into investing on the green infrastructure, making the city much more permeable, lower the urban heat island effect, etc. So after these projects, we actually got like quite a lot of new projects for the city. Also due to the fact that even though we called it a 1,000-year rain event in 2011, it was followed up in 2014 with a 400-year rain event. 100-year event in 2017, and then a 10-year rain event in 2022 this year. So the amount and the frequency of these rain events are just exceeding our imagination and our predictions. So we have to make our cities much more adaptable towards what actually is hitting us, both from the sea level rise, but also from the water falling on our heads. So that leads me to the next slide. The next project is actually a product called the Climate Tile, because we found out with all these optimizations potential of the gray infrastructure that there was this situation, as mentioned, that we have more than 700 kilometers of sidewalks in Copenhagen. They all consist of these gray tiles that you see in the lower right corner. And this is the situation that you, as a commuter or a car owner, pedaling around, commuting, trying to find a parking spot, being frustrated because half of the city is looking like this all the time. And it also represents a lot of carbon emissions, pollutions, etc. I guess you know all these issues. So we're saying, could we do that a bit smarter? Could we reinvent that tile that hasn't been innovated in the past 50 years? So the ambition was to see whether we could take something that is kind of linear, our paving systems and our sewer system, and redirect them into a circular kind of thinking. If we could retain water falling on our roofs, on our sidewalks that are considered being clean enough to reuse them, could we direct that into the planters, watering the trees? Because I guess Copenhagen is not the only city who has a political ambition of planting hundreds or thousands of trees, but no one knows where to put them because we have this technological Tower of Babel below ground. So that was the ambition, and you see the conventional tile in the bottom and the new tiles, the climate tiles, like adjacent to it. So the idea was to come up with a system that clicks directly in this scalable tile solution that we have all over the city. But due to the fact that it has 42 holes on the top and like a 5-chamber canal system in the middle of it, we could sort of retain water falling on our roofs and sidewalks and store it, retain it until the existing sewer system is ready to receive the enormous amounts of water falling on our cities again. We could also, direct it into the new planters that we proposed. We could also filtrate the water falling from the street before it went into the sewer system. So kind of a smart, stupid solutions that were more or less inspired by the Romans with the aqueduct. Here we just created something that was also scalable, but imagine to come to Copenhagen and being able to walk on water. I think that at least is a narrative that the most politicians can understand. The findings and the surpluses, the winnings of this project is, of course, that we can retain water, but it can also infiltrate, it can absorb, and it can also here lower the urban heat island effect. We could also place trees and optimize the usage of the grey infrastructure, still fitting in a lot of cars and turning the streets as we know them into something that was much more inviting. So the system actually is in many different layers, spanning from a walkable sidewalk tile up to what we call a fat boy, being able to also provide solutions for streets, for bike lanes, etc. Again, it doesn't have to fit with the Danish standards. We can dimension it in both lengths and widths and depths. So kind of a very modular, scalable solution. So for the remaining amount of money that we had in the project, we sort of said it's needed to test this out in the real world. So we convinced this cafe and this housing block just outside the office that we could use them as a test. And this is how it used to look. And this is like half an hour before the last tree was planted with, and the last tile was put in place. And this was sort of the day after, and our collaborators from huge German climate producers came up to visit this test street. But what actually catches my eye is that within a day, the street and the sidewalk turned into from something that was just a walkway, a sidewalk, into an urban space. Suddenly, the area attracted a whole lot of different groups, and people started using it as a common space, as an urban space, where everything, all the soft commuters, but also the cars, were sort of accepted because the nature-based solution was created as like function as this kind of a buffer in between. And the nice side effect for us was that every time we visited the cafe, we got free coffee, because they like more than doubled the income based on this urban space that was made sort of by mistake, more or less. So we have been monitoring the solution for the past 4 years. We know it works. We know the amount of salt. We know the capacity, the hydraulic capacity, etc. We can sort of gear what is inside the system, and we know how to open it up to to the sewer system. It is just some months ago been handed over to the municipality and the utility company, who are currently investigating how they can implement this on a bigger urban scale. So kind of a huge potential for with a small product and a small solution. As you see, only 50 meters done, but we are sort of ready to take the concept to market. Now we're looking out for collaborators, other cities around, ideally Europe, who are also facing a lot of these flooding situations, not only Copenhagen, I know. So it is more or less ready. And since there's a limitation to geographically when it makes sense to transport concrete products. So ideally, it's a system that we sort of license out. So local manufacturers, local producers can use it with the local concrete tile manufacturers in any given place. So hopefully going from 50 meters in Copenhagen to, I don't know what, in a city near you, hopefully. So as said, this kind of approach led to other commissions for the city of Copenhagen. Actually, this was 7 commissions because there was a huge plan. After this rain event, the municipality initiated, I think, 300 projects over the next coming years as well, for more than 2 billion euros. Our job was sort of trying to navigate within that, because there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of different disciplines that goes into urban planning and climate resiliency. I think you all know that with that kind of topic that we're sitting around and discussing today. So we were asked to come up with something that actually our decision makers could understand when it came to a sustainable way of implementing green and blue solutions. And we said it's much more than just understanding the amount of rain coming from above or below. It's also the timing with other kind of projects that you initiate on a city level, because 2 billion euros sounds as a lot, but on a city scale like Copenhagen, it's absolutely nothing. Like it's bigger piping systems, and then you have used half. So somehow we had to click on to where we could create more synergies. So we looked into all these other parameters when it comes to urban planning and common sense. So what is the distance to green and blue? Where are the development zones? Where are the ghettos where you have earmarked a lot of money? Where are the heat island effects? And so I think 22 different parameters then we put into this absurd Rorschach test of an urban map. And it looks like this hippie T-shirt from the 70s, I guess. But sort of we used it as a tool, because when we just pulled away the 7 different districts, it was quite clear to see that there are different conditions here. Clearly in inner city, we have the biggest challenge here is the urban heat island effect, because we don't have these amount of green parks, etc., that can absorb the heat. So the best thing to spend your money on here is not the same thing that is smart to use on Nørrebro, where the office is, for instance. So on a very macro level, we recommended the city to use it as a guiding tool to actually direct the money in a smart way. So it's not one solution fits all. And then we came up with all these 7 different schemes for each neighborhood with clear recommendations. What are the givens here? What is the parking norm? What are where's the urban life? Where are the local flows, the blue spots? All these things with the topography. And then we created these recommendations of how to increase the amount of green based on that kind of knowledge. And then also with kind of basic solutions of how to create more connected green infrastructures. Again, with reference to this quote, that we don't need islands of good behavior in a sea of stupidity. We need things that actually increases the biomass. We need things that can create synergies and connections of blue and green infrastructures. And the reason for doing that is also somehow in a curious way starting to question how can it be that we went from this is a a postcard from 1921 at the City Hall, or it's actually named after the famous Danish writer Hans Christian Andersen, writing all the fairy tales. And I can understand it by looking at the postcards, because you could stop up in the middle of the street talking to your friend that you by coincidence met. But if we make a fast forward 100 years ahead, this is the same situation, or this is a different situation, but the same place. Here we have a battle between commuters, and so we sort of started just to ask the question, how come that we have stopped orientating our city towards what is actually living? How come that the hardcore infrastructure so much defines how we are living in our cities? And I think there's a lot of potential in looking into these kind of whys that you, Hedvig, also was stating in the beginning. So we generated a lot of visions because that's also what goes well when it comes to decision makers. So this is one of the main infrastructures in Copenhagen. So we created these kind of potential green visions that could show how would the city look like if we actually could optimize the infrastructure, both above the ground, but also working with cut and cover solutions, climate adapt for heavy rain events. How can we look at these modernistic legacy that was initiated in the 70s? How could we turn that into like the green line of Copenhagen, providing space for common housing, social housing, youth housing, etc. So as you see on many different levels, but hopefully you can also see some kind of thin red line in the narrative of how we approach our projects. And luckily that also led us to get invited and pre-qualified for a competition about this park, Enghavparken, that is a wonderful place, or at least it was. Initially established back in 1928, based on this neoclassical layout with the Vitruvian man. Everything was related to the scale of the body, so kind of strict. The park was super popular, but also quite worn down, as you see from this overview. But it was really an issue here was that the former brewery site of Carlsberg is just on the left side of this picture. And it was planned at a time where no one even were capable of spelling climate change. So all the water that is falling on this Carlsberg, the mountain, flows directly into the basements of this district. So the utility company of Copenhagen and the city came up with a given here that, yes, you have to renew the park, but you also have to fit in up to 24,000 cubic meters of rainwater in this park with a size of approximately 30,000 square meters. So a substantial amount of water at a height that is, of course, giving some challenges to keeping the neoclassical layout. But we managed to come up with a solution, like a three-step solution, as we call it, that works on a normal day, as you see on the left, where you have some water elements always visible, so the small puddles, the pools, and also a visible water element in surrounding the park. On a 10-year rain event, we were then capable of retaining a substantial amount of water, as you see here, like up to 10,000 cubic meters. And retain it before the existing dimensioned utility or sewer system was ready to receive that amount of water. So again, the park functions as a reservoir and can hold back the water, minimizing the need to spend billions of euros on the infrastructure below ground that doesn't really bring any added value to the city. And then on like a monster rain event, a heavy rain event, the entire park can sort of be closed down by a surrounding dike, or the longest bench of Copenhagen, as we call it, approximately 90 centimeter high dike or polder or bench that we can close down in these yellow marked entrances and then retain up to these 24,000 cubic meters of water. So, of course, it doesn't rain that much in Copenhagen. It rains 180 days a year, so kind of a lot. But of course, the park has to work all the other days that it's not needed for these retaining principles. So it has all these elements. But jumping to one of these reservoirs, it on a 99% of the time it works as a schoolyard for the hockey club, for concerts, etc. And then when this 10-year rain event comes, the reservoir is being filled up, and you can retain the water until the sewer system is ready, and then it's slowly being emptied and cleaned, and 6 hours later, it's back to normal condition again. And on this super rain events, we can use the gates with the historical entrance buildings, and we sort of develop this idea of the gates where you see the benches here, and in a very low technical way, the weight is being of the water is being what do you call it, detected, and then the gate is sort of with this dock port being closed off, and then it can retain all the water that is filled up to the max capacity. And then seen from also, again, a normal situation with this bench surrounding it, and then filled up with me sitting in this kayak celebrating a man-made natural phenomenon in a couple of years' time. The park was opened in 2019. It has been a huge success. I think there's more than 1 million visitors yearly, so exceeding the amount of visitors to the biggest and oldest amusement park in Copenhagen called Tivoli. That is far bigger than this. So again, showing that there is actually a way for architects coming up with solutions. It's perhaps quite a technical solution, but it's the technical understanding here that actually informs the architecture and also understands the context and the historical legacy. So I think the challenge is not so much, it's not so much difficult to plan for adapting new development areas. It's much more how we climate adapt the existing urban fabric where the challenges are. But Hedwig, you were there, and I'm happy to hear that you were excited about it. We'd love to see whether we could sort of export these kind of ideas. We don't have that many parks in Copenhagen, so we're sort of exceeding our portfolio here. Like we're definitely looking out for more collaborations and more cities that are keen on seeing how we can implement ideas like this. But as you see from these pictures, it's super popular. The kids love it. We're still waiting for the huge rain event, but you always see water as an element here. It's not something that we hide. It's not water that we see as an issue or as a problem. We actually see it as something that we can bring back and create a bigger understanding on how we can climate adapt our cities with architecture. Now jumping a bit to I'll call it the funny department. This is also, it's not a realized project yet. I doubt that it ever will be, but we had a mayor from New York City coming to Copenhagen saying, "So ein Ding muss ich haben," in English. Like he was kind of inspired by our way of creating these systemic approaches. And he said, like, we have these huge issues also with water, especially based on the catastrophes from Katrina. So can you come up with something that both can solve or bring ideas to the table where we can climate adapt? Can we come up with solutions that also handle more than one problem, for instance, the parking solution? And very often you look into silos when it comes to urban planning. It's either a department at the city hall handling stormwater protection or rainwater protection, and another department handling infrastructure and parking. So sort of we try to insist that you had to, again, look into the synergies to actually create something that provided more solutions to the problem. So we found out by analyzing all the blue spots of Lower Manhattan, that there was this area at this roundabout to the tunnel below the Hudson River called St. John's Park, and it would fit perfectly to establish an underground parking facility of up to 300 parked cars. And again, here it's an island of good behavior and a sea of stupidity. It might be green, but it's not accessible at all. So we said, can we look into something where we actually are creating two solutions in one? And I came in mind of this principle from like 5th year physics class, the principle of Archimedes. Imagine that the glass represents this underground solid concrete cylinder that retains all the water, and then the cork that represents the parking structure with all the cars inside it simply pops when the water pressure, it's again the buoyancy of the submerged element, like that defines why it floats. It sort of looks like this kind of utopian section, kind of dystopian section, some say. It is based on the same kind of principle. So it is in this local low where all the water comes in, and the pressure and the power of the water simply makes the parking structure float. We developed the idea and the narrative, and then we approached the two biggest engineering company of Denmark called Covi and Rambo, and they sort of made the business case. They calculated on the hydraulics, they calculated on the statics, and they were really annoyed that it was architects coming up with an engineering solution like this. But it is like equivalent to what you know as this the floating docks, or the sluice house, the sluizen in the Netherlands with the big ships. You can simply empty it and you can fill it up, and the structure floats. Again, here we propose that it's a public accessible program. It could be a cafe, it could be a museum on top of it, with an accessible day-lit parking facility also for bikes. And it would look 99% of the time like this. And then when the next Katrina comes or the rain event comes, it starts to pop. And again, has the capacity to accumulate up to, I think, 6.5 million gallons of water. I can't remember the amount of cubic meters, but yeah, you can do the math. And then again, when the sewer system in New York is ready to receive the amounts of water, it goes down into normal condition again. So like the project is hanging on his at the wall of his office, this mayor in New York, and we're still waiting for the green light. I doubt that at a level will happen, but we were just approached by Audi in the Netherlands today, actually, asking for the illustration and the description, because they kind of like innovative ideas for mobility, and yeah, I guess it fits well in this. But we're also surprised by the popularity of the project, or how it actually managed to communicate. And as you see, there's this Instagram account, and I think when we did this project some years ago, it had more than 12 million followers, and they were all interested in Rihanna and Drake and sneakers. And suddenly, the pop-up parking illustration popped up here again and generated more than twice as many likes in a day than compared to my old colleagues from Big when they promoted their Lego house. So again, I think it just clearly states that we are dealing with generations today and after us who are keen on looking into how they can actually contribute. They are aware of that we need to do something a bit differently. And I think as architects and planners, we also need to be aware of what we can contribute with and what our responsibilities in terms of providing the right solutions actually are. Then jumping to the project where you, Hedvig, heard me present, we were so lucky to be invited to this initiative in Groningen in the time of this Spongeland exhibition. I think it managed to travel around some cities in the Netherlands. We were asked to come up with an idea of like looking into Groningen, not the medieval periphery of how Groningen looked with this fortified perimeter, but more based on the fact that Groningen is growing at a huge at a fast speed. So you had to activate also the periphery of your district, of your region, and the city. Especially, we were asked to look at this industrial site called the Damster Deep Zone, that consists of like a lot of car dealers and utility companies and industry. But in the near future, like in 2015, it has to be part of the urban fabric. Also trying to deal with the urban heat island effect, as you can see, is expected to be increased by more than 2.5 degrees. And this is how it looks today. Again, I wouldn't even say it's an island of good behavior. It's an island of bad behavior and a sea of stupidity. But I think it's quite of representative to any other European city as we know them. So the question was, how can we come up with a solution and a strategy that gradually over the next 30 years could transform this into a different urban space, livable space, climate adapted space. So we, again, with all the projects I've been showing you, we looked into how can we optimize the streets, how can we activate the green infrastructure, etc. And this is how it looks today. And here I think you can see some kind of best of the different projects I showed you with the climate tile, the street width optimization, the increase of biomass and biodiversity. So this is a scenario that it could look like in a couple of years' time, really easy. All the industries could fully function as they do today, but you could slowly start the transition and the transformation of the identity of this district. And then with a fast forward and like looking into the Driebrand in 2035, the infrastructure has been completely replaced by mobility hubs, other ways of commuting. The functioning of the industries has been replaced by different, more green industries and institutions and housing, and creating a much bigger connection of the green infrastructures. So the findings that we sort of defined here is like looking into maximizing the permeability, reducing the overall asphalt by 22%, so actually even more than what we managed to do in Copenhagen. We could go from a green biofactor of 0.5, that is not bad, but we could create a mind-blowing biofactor of 1.33. We could, by that, lower create a cool heat sink by providing all these green areas. It could really contribute in lowering the heat with a substantial amount of degrees. Sorry, I just have to drink some water. Then actually the party trick came here when we also provided the blue infrastructure in handling the rainwater. Because as you see on the top, it sort of created this kind of it kind of evoked the fortification signature of Groningen, but only when there's heavy rain events or when there's flooding coming from the canal. But it could actually retain up to 450,000 cubic meters of water. Sorry. Talking too much.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Sorry.
No worries.
And then creating some kind of scenarios like you see here in the picture. So that was about it. My voice is gone a bit, but that was also, I think, exceeding a bit the 25 minutes. I hope you're still in there. I hope the Netherlands scored at least one goal, but I'm open for questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the game is not that exciting anymore, so we can have some questions. Yeah, you get some applause as well. Yeah, that's great. You can go all over the place, from Copenhagen to New York talk about whole cities, but also a tile, and especially the integral approach. So many disciplines that comes down to it. That's amazing. Are there any questions from everybody? I saw everybody very attentive, listening. So, any remarks from you guys? Or all amazed?
Yeah, I'm curious because Piet, you also did something alike at the Grote Markt, where the water from the buildings are being infiltrated in the ground with plastic crates to hold the. Maybe you can tell something about it. Is it similar as what Ole showed us?
Yes, well, they are all similar projects, but I'm very pleased to see the things we did in Denmark. So, but I think that there are all kinds of yeah, likely to the things done in Denmark, but it's great to see what they've done. I'm very flabbergasted from all those kinds of things we saw, and yes, I think there are not. It's not difficult to do things. That's the big problem. You do not have to make big problems to make this kind of things working. And yeah, well, perhaps we can show something in the next time what we do in Groningen, for instance, also to Denmark. But I'm very interested in all those kind of things. And that.
Thank you.
A digital applause. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw the stones, immediately I thought we should test that at building as well. But yeah, we get back to that later. Sydney.
Yes, Ole, thank you for this great presentation. Really inspiring. I really liked it a lot. Also the different parts, like Flora said, you go from big to small, but basically it's it's not all the same, but it's all one thing in the end. And I think it's great that you guys are really looking like that at it through the different skills. That's how you look at it, and that's really nice. And also, what I'm glad to see is that you reduce the amounts of pavement just by looking at, well, why is it there? Is it needed? Because often situations are constructed in another time, and in the other times there were other problems, other priorities, and these change. And we're trying to reduce pavement here in the Netherlands as well, because green, gray, and blue is connected like that.
Yeah.
The less gray you have, the less water you need to transport and get into your water systems. So we're also looking into that, like don't try to only think of it as transport and mobility. Now let's have a look at what you can get out of it in all the disciplines. What I was wondering is that when you showed me these pictures of the streets and where you reduced some of the pavement areas and put green on it, if you come across problems with mobility, because here in the Netherlands we have, I also let me introduce myself for a moment, by the way. I'm from the municipality of Nijmegen, and I'm in the maintenance of sewer system and climate adaptive green-blue measures. So from the bioswales, infiltration sewers, infiltration pavement, and then mainly from the maintenance part. However, lately I'm also advising a lot at the start of projects. And then when we are reducing pavement and put green on there, we usually get a lot of critic right away for safety, like putting trees up there, and then everybody is first, oh, there's more trees, more green, more shade, more water infiltration, but it's an unsafe angle to take. So then, no, it's not going to happen. I was wondering how many, if you have experienced that as a big problem in Copenhagen, or not per se.
No, not really. Like as said, every time you propose a tree, you have this situation, of course, by one side of the politician world. They're like the right wing, they love the cars, and the left, they love the trees. And very often it's a battle. But I think what we provided was showing them that you don't have to choose necessarily. Like you can get both, and then very often, if you both can save money, you can optimize the amount of car parking lots, and you can place more trees. Then, like you have this kind of the kinder eye of urbanization. But currently in Copenhagen, they just decided to lower the speed limits from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 on most streets. And I think
Awesome.
it's the same in Holland too, at least on your highways, to lower the emissions and etc. And if you look into the regulations there again, that actually gives you the opportunity to again decrease the width of the street, because the width is defined by, again, safety reasons. And that's also why you chop off all the trees through time, because it was a safety issue. So the slower you drive, the lower the risk, the bigger the space is for implementing more green infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I think there's a momentum and there's a potential. I think there's a lot of political will to do so, but they don't know where and they don't know how.
That's really cool, because that was kind of the answer I was hoping for, that you have to change some of the mobility architecture for something as well, between brackets, as simple as speed limits that can solve these spatial problems. Yeah, that's awesome. But that's also why we're talking here about more integration of the different disciplines, because you're not always fighting against each other. You can actually be each other's solution. Yeah.
But I think it's also based on the fact that the situation has changed, where it used to be put something green where you can fit it in, something that is nice and cultivated and good for the eye. And it turns out that the green open climate solutions are also less expensive than doing the ones the further you go low, the more money you spend. So it has, at least in Copenhagen, there's a growing awareness of the politician and decision makers and those the departments paying for it, that the higher you can actually create the solution and the surface solution, the smarter it is and the cheaper it is. So it has changed from being something that is nice to have to something that is need to have. So somehow our hope is that the green infrastructure is what informs the infrastructure and not vice versa. So of course it's a fact, it's a given. We have decided still that the car is an element that is part of the city, but it has to be on the premises of what is living.
Yeah.
Nice.
If there are there any other people with questions? Because if not, I have another one. I probably have a lot, but
go for it.
But I think I can afford one more. Because of the tiles, I was also interested in that. We don't work a lot in Nijmegen with infiltrating pavement or concrete types. We usually work most with green systems, and actually one of the main arguments against this is always maintenance, which is my department. And I was looking at these tiles, and I've looked to a lot of tiles because I'm also in a countrywide knowledge platform about infiltrating pavements. And I was of course wondering how is it maintained, because I saw these quite small. You have these different sizes, of course, but quite small. Pipes in the tile himself and one small hole in the upper side, and I was really like, okay, this looks really vulnerable to clogging. However, you mentioned it's a modular system and it also said easy to maintain, so I was really wondering how then is it easy to maintain, and has it to do something with the modularity of it?
Okay. when we started generating ideas, there were no limits to what this tile was capable of. Like it could almost brew coffee, is what we're joking with. You know, we had the idea that it had to it should be able to direct excess heat from the buildings into the pavement, minimizing the need to salting or sanding the streets during wintertime. But we decided on creating what you could call a beta version, like that the tile has to be convincible on a minimal level. Like it has to be really easy to convince the system or the industry that it's a smart solution. It has to click into the same kind of technique of layering it. It has to be smart in servicing it, etc. But we also, on a very early stage, defined that it's permeable on the top layer, but it's solid on the base, due to the fact that, at least in Denmark and also many other cities and countries, the underground, at least in Copenhagen, is consisting of clay or rock. Meaning, yes, you can create some kind of infiltration system. We all know these kind of pavings with asphalt where the water disappears on these YouTube videos, but like we are considering the water as a resource that we have to reuse and redirect into the system again. But also in terms of your question, the servicing of these permeable or infiltrating solutions with the asphalt, etc., it just clogs with all the sand and all the small stones. So it's super expensive to service that, to clean that up. So that's why we came up with a solution that we developed together with the Technical Institute of Copenhagen or Denmark. So the holes are defined, and yes, they're small. So we also thought they had a tendency to clog. But now, after 3 years, and it has been monitored on a daily basis, more or less, like we did a 3-year report, and I think on the 50-meter stretch per tile, I think 2, 3, maybe 4 of the small holes were clogged. And it shows that one tile has only 6 to 8 of the holes open of the 42 in total, it has the full capacity. And it's because the 42 holes are spread out over the entire tile, and it's not just one central, sewer hole that collects all the water. So it is rather easy to just lift up the top layer of the tile, and you can put pressure on it in a very common way of servicing it. After 3 years, we looked into the system, like we took out every 10th tile of the 50 meters and looked out. It was almost no sand, no sediments there, like no big deal, and almost no holes were clogged. The second or the next question we usually get is, well, what happens with the tiles during winter when it freezes? Doesn't it crack? And the answer here is no, it hasn't for the 4 past years. Also, we did a lot of tests there with the Institute. But it also is based on the situation that during wintertime, it doesn't fall like rain, it falls like snow. And snow is melting at a slower pace. So it doesn't stay in the tile to create the cracks of the concrete that very often is a situation that we face with the conventional tiles. So none of the tiles has cracked for the past 4 years. And if we compare to a similar sidewalk in the conventional way, you see cracks all over the place.
Okay, I have to follow up on that because I have only one thing with infiltration, pavement types, and these kind of tiles, and it's really not to be negative or something, but after 3 years not clogging is not that impressive. To me, because we have many systems that work like that, and what I mostly see is that it's really location dependent. Like on many locations or some locations it goes very well, and then on another location we see, well, it goes wrong, and nobody exactly knows why, because there is some kind of source of pollution which make them clog up much faster.
Yeah.
And of course we're looking at systems that for one systems that don't clog up, that takes a long time to clog up. However, we also have the situations where it did clog up not expected that fast. And then we usually have, at least at our municipality, we want a system that's easy accessible and easy cleaning. So actually you have to like, we call it a bit of a doom scenario, that we always let loose on a new technology. Like, okay, in the worst kind of situation, we have to clean everything. How easy to clean is it? That's then the question.
But that's why it's a pilot stretch, and the city of Copenhagen they have the same argument, saying but normally we have like we have to test out new solutions 10 years before we implement them. And so okay,
you can do that.
Good luck with your innovation then in terms of implementing green scalable ideas that actually has an impact. Because like then you would end just by continuing the small pocket parks here and there and the small flower beds, and it doesn't change anything. So of course, you're right. 3 years and 50 meters, that doesn't prove that it doesn't clog up, and that's why we are reaching out to other cities, saying, "Are you keen on testing this out? Ideally, like a kilometer or 2, so you really could test it, right?"
Yeah, the thing that I really like about it is, and what you said, because that was what I'm wondering about, how easy it is to take out these tiles.
Yeah.
Because many systems we have with drainage systems or creates lower below a foundation, then we have to go somewhere in the ground, and underground we have to go meters to clean it.
And you always hit something you didn't expect.
Yeah, right? And with this system, it's like you can almost see probably where the clogging is, and then just take the tile out, clean it. So that's what I really like about it.
It is kind of a stupid product that has the potential to grow smart.
Yeah.
So it has small chips in the tiles that register these conditions.
Oh, really?
What I didn't. So it measures the salt amount and the water, all these things. It's rather easy. So we have an antenna standing on the roof here of the office, so it sends all the information like every second. But what I didn't tell is that inside the 5 chambers of this tile, one of the chambers could be dedicated to be like a waterproof, frost-proof cabling channel. So again, you can take the top layer of the tile, and as an electrician, you can just like roll out all your like fiber cabling that you don't need to go 1 meter deep, that interferes with this technological Tower of Babel. So again, here a smart way that can just keep the solutions on the surface level.
Yeah. Indeed, especially if you make it multifunctional and could put the cables in, that's really a problem. And actually, I had the same question in Sydney doing research on permeable pavement, and today I'm in Klagenfurt in Austria, and I actually saw also tiles with the holes in it, and I never I shared them in the chat. I will send it to you by email. It's a totally different system, of course, but maybe in some cities where they have these holes, which are easier to clean than sediment, which is in porous asphalt or anything. So you could suck it up or that kind of thing. I can believe it, but we don't have that in the Netherlands, so that made me excited as well to see if we could do so. And I also have one example from Taiwan, which is about 12 years ago, actually. And then it might also prove some other things, that it don't break or that kind of thing that could help the product, or at least these kind of permeable systems in the urban area. So amazing. And also, I really hope that the pop-up parking garage will work. That's an amazing idea.
I mean, we more questions about that one, but it's a good idea.
Coming from a tile to something bigger, of course, but
it's what you could call a conversation opener.
No, exactly. And there were some thoughts in the Netherlands as well, if the dikes would break, if we should put floating foundation under structures, so it just goes up. But of course, it's not cost benefits. We have poles, of course, we have to cut through, otherwise it doesn't go up. That kind of thing. And of course, it will cost a lot of money. But I think a business case in New York, I mean, benefits, right?
But that's what we found out with Ramble and Covey, that yes, it is more expensive clearly than just making a reservoir on the ground or a parking structure above ground. But if you combine those two, and also consider that those two huge structures, they actually compete for the same kind of space that is not there in the dense cities, then it actually makes super sense to combine budgets.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you have a business case. That's really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there?
Ole also has other ideas. I really like that. It was from Driebond. You thought of clouds that could you could just lit up with a solar panels on top.
Yeah.
But they didn't make it in the.
No, at a certain point you have to kill your darlings and your crazy ideas. Some managed to survive, but this we had this idea of having artificial clouds. You could sort of pop up
like balloons.
Balloons. But that was also in the more funny department, I think. Let's see.
It makes you think about things in another way. It gets further, and then you get an idea that really works, maybe. I like it when people do that.
That's good.
Pop-up ideas. Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's what I learned by working in the Netherlands almost 20 years ago. It was asking this: what if we could do this, right?
Yeah.
And I think you as a nation has proved that, that you are still behind the Hoek van Holland, protected by the sea. Is kind of insane if you consider the amounts of efforts that you, as a civilization or society, have put into it. Yeah. So I think it also proves that we can actually do something that has an impact on a huge level. Yeah. We just need to be a bit more aware of our capabilities.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice closure.
I think.
Yeah,
Exactly. We should close up. We're 15 minutes behind, but I think that's a compliment to you, Ole, for even being so emotional in the end, having no voice. And I'm also so jealous as a civil engineer on the visuals that architects spread, and there's one visual and you get the ID, so that's really great. I think thanks a lot. Tusen tak. Also to. And also to Hedwig, of course, for connecting us. Definitely. And I think we'll you're connected to Groningen, so I will meet you probably soon, and we get to talk about your crazy ideas that I really enjoy. And you have a big fans in Nijmegen as well as a municipality now, so we can do some great work. So that's amazing. So I think we should. Yeah, we should really do that. So then, thanks everyone, of course, and congratulations with the World Championship that you didn't watch, but we won this game, so that's nice. That's good. So it was an excellent afternoon by that, but mostly because of your presentation, Ole.
That's good. Yes.
So, all right, another applause. All right. And nice meeting you all. Have a great evening, and thanks again.
Don't hesitate to reach out if you need more info. Right?
We will. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.